Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Everyone, welcome. Surah Yusuf, chapter 12, verses 63 to 78 will be covered today. And these are the references as usual, and this is our contact. Two verses for our general guidance. I've included these two verses just I thought that as an introduction and as a reminder to all of us that we should not be distracted by things which are not of our concern. First verse is Tilka ummatun qad khalat laha ma kasabat walakum ma kasabtum wala tusaluna amma kanu ya'malun. That was the people that have passed away. They shall reap the fruit of what they did, and you of what you do. Of their merit, there is no question in your case. So Quran has asked us to remain focused on the work which we have our aim in the light of the Quran and the guidance provided by it, and not to get involved in those things which are distractions. Like we can discuss history, but up to a point where we get benefit out of it, not to waste time on those necessary arguments and discussions which are of not importance to our direct aim in front of us. The next one is Inna Allah la yastahi an yadriba matalan ma ba'udatan fama fawqaha famallazina amanu fayalamuna annahu al-haqqu min rabbihim wammallazina kafaru fayakuluna madha arada Allahu bihadha matala yudillu bihi kasiran wa yahdi bihi kasiran wa ma yudillu bihi illa al-fasiqeen. This is a verse from Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah hesitates not to use the similitude of things lowest as well as highest. Those who have Iman know that it is haqq from their Rabb. Of course, they reach this conclusion through their own efforts. But those who manifest kufr, that is, they reject it, they think that life has no purpose and we are only here to fulfill our desires and then we die and there is no hereafter. What means Allah by this similitude? By it, He causes many to stray and many He leads into the right path, but He causes not to stray except those who are fasiqeen. And fasiqeen, we know, are those who do not wish to develop their self, which takes into account the hereafter, i.e. based on Iman and Amal Saleh, those not wishing to develop their selves. And over here I put down a few comments. Even if the whole world starts reading the Quran, still it will not make any difference till they understand the Quran the way it wants them to understand it. And we have gone over these points previously as well. I thought it is just to serve as a reminder, because in Surah Yusuf, some of these things are becoming very evidently clear to us. This is a cognitive issue, not an issue of understanding Arabic. I come across these kind of comments that in order to understand the Quran as if Arabic is a prerequisite. And that is not my view. And the reason is that first we should be looking for guidance. And understanding Arabic, of course, helps, but it should come later. The first point is that what do we want from our life? And then acquire Iman. And verses like Surah Baqarah 177, they're very straightforward verses. With a simple translation, we can understand what the Quran is asking us to accept in the first instance. Internal cognitive change to accept its guidance has to take place. So we should recognize that what is happening within us, within our thought process. And we have gone over it many times. Dr. Hamid has given a number of presentations on this aspect. Where are we in Surah Yusuf? First is, having been through the challenges in his life after facing his brothers and the caravan people, Yusuf landed in Egypt in the palace of the Aziz. He acquires an eminent self by following the guidance of Wahi and reaches the state of being among Muhsinin as defined by Allah in the Quran. Next is, after spending some years in Egypt, he reaches adulthood and is now ready to face the next major challenge of his life in a non-deen society. The wife of Aziz and her companions try to molest Yusuf against his own self. Yusuf stands up to evil firmly and steadfastly, and as a consequence lands up in prison. Next is, in the prison, he further develops his self by gaining more experience through interacting with fellow prisoners. He professes his firm Iman in Allah and His law and informs others about it. So this is important. Just knowing about Iman and the laws of Allah is not enough. In order to develop ourselves, we have to let others know. One of the prisoners whose dream Yusuf interprets successfully returns to the king and getting his job back as the manager of drinks in the palace. The king dreams a vision and Yusuf interprets it for him via this ex-prisoner. Yusuf gets his case with the ladies investigated by the king and is proved to be innocent of any crime. And finally, the king invites Yusuf to discuss the issues facing Egypt. Yusuf takes over the responsibility of managing the economic affairs following agreement with the king. After 7 years of good harvest through better planning, 7 years of famine set in. Yusuf's brothers also arrive in Egypt to obtain grain for their family. Yusuf recognizes them, though the brothers do not recognize him. Yusuf asks them to bring his real brother with them when they next come to Egypt to obtain more grain. So this is where we are so far, and now we go to the next set of verses. Brothers plead the case with their father to allow younger brother to accompany them to Egypt. If we remember that after getting the grain, they return to Canaan and then they speak to their father. فَلَمَّا رَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَبِيهِمْ قَالُوا يَا أَبَانَا مُنِعَ مِنَّا الْكَيْلُ فَأَرْسِلْ مَعَنَا أَخَانَا نَقْتَلْ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Consequently, when they returned, those brothers, they returned and went to their father. They, after narrating other events, so they told him what happened really in Egypt. And this is important because this point will come later when Yaqub is going to give them instruction not to enter into Egypt from one gate. If we remember, there used to be gates as a protection, as a security around some cities in the world. And over here, probably pointing to that, said that we have been told that you will only be given grain again if you also bring your brother with you. If this is not done, then never mind the grain, you will not be able to come anywhere near me. So what they do is they narrate it to their father Yaqub that Aziz of Egypt had met them and this is what happened. But keep in mind over here, they are saying that you will not get the grain if you don't bring your younger brother. And that is not what Yusuf had said. And send our brother with us so that we can bring back grain and we give you assurance that we will fully protect him. So the next one, Qala hal amanukum alayhi illa kama mintukum ala akhihi min qablu fallahu khairun hafizan wa huwa arhamur rahimin. Now listening to this story from his sons, now Yaqub replied upon this. He said, that is Yaqub, what should I also trust you in this, in his case, just as previously I had trusted you regarding his brother, which is Yusuf. And if you remember, Yusuf was thrown into the well and then he was sold in Egypt. And these brothers had thrown him into the well or dropped him into the well. That is why I cannot place him in your protection. So now Yaqub brings up that case and he says that how can I let this younger brother go with you? And because you did wrong to his elder brother. He will remain in the protection of Allah because he is the best to protect and provides the best of provisions. So over here, Brother Yaqub, he relates it to Allah and says that it is better that he stays here in front of my eyes rather than I send him with you and you also try to harm him like what you did with Yusuf. Now this is an important point here that that friction between sons and father is still continuing because Hazrat Yaqub is watching the behavior of his sons and he finds that there is not much change in them, despite the fact that he must be telling them different values or permanent values of Allah's Wahi. Verses 63 to 64, few clarifications. Now, I have put down certain points here which need our attention. Here, the brothers tell their father that they will not get grain unless they take their younger half-brother with them. As noted in our previous presentation under verse 1260, Yusuf had told them, "Fala taila lakum indi wala takrabun." Yusuf had very clearly told them that you will not get grain from me. That is personally me, and you will not be able to come closer to me. Aziz was not supposed to be on every stall, and he did a favor because he was interested in the family and to get more information. And if he was asking them to bring your brother and linking it with the grain, that was because in case you bring him, then I will personally be present to do it. Whereas grain was their share, their right, and they would have got it had they paid for it. I.e., I will not give you grains myself, i.e., personally, and you will not have access to me. Yusuf specifically told them that he personally will not provide these, otherwise they will get the share as allowed under the rules of the famine. So with a self, that kind of a self of Yusuf, he is not going to bring into it his personal liking and disliking or his desire. So this is the point for all of us to keep it in mind. When they return to their father, these brothers do not relay this as Yusuf had stated to them. So this is where brothers again made a mistake, or it was deliberate. Quran has not pointed to it, but we can assume that they were convinced that if they tell only that what Aziz has said, then father may not agree. But if we tell him that they are not going to get grain, then he is more likely to send their younger brother with them. Instead, they say that the Aziz is not going to provide them with grains if the younger brother of Yusuf is not sent with them. There is an important point here which merits our attention. Yusuf, knowing his father and his level of understanding in the light of Wahi, possibly wished to convey an indication that he is alive and holding an elevated status in such a way without his brothers becoming aware of this. Now, this is an important point which I thought of it for a long time, and I said, there is some message Yusuf is trying to convey over here, possibly to his father. When, if brothers had told their father, Yaqub, that Yusuf, Aziz, has specifically said that you bring your younger brother for these reasons, and which was, one was that he did not come this time, but I've given you the grain, but next time when he comes, you will get his share as well, number one. Number two, he was trying to tell his father that his personal interest into a younger brother and saying that I will personally be present to deliver this grain when they come next time. Father, being man of Wahi, should have picked it up very quickly. And he does pick it up after this visit. That he's alive, an indication that he is alive and holding an elevated status in such a way without his brothers becoming aware of this. He asked them to tell their father that the Aziz took a personal interest in their affairs, and when they took their leave, stated, bring your younger brother here with you next time. If you do not, then I will not personally give you grains and will not meet you personally like I did this time. So this point we should keep it in mind, because once we sum up whole of Surah Yusuf, we will go through some of the points how to apply Wahi's guidance to our life. If this was conveyed to Yaqub as stated by Yusuf, he would have possibly got the message implicit in this statement that it is likely to be Yusuf who is linking the younger brother to his personal presence there. Yaqub did pick it up after this visit, as will be covered later in the surah. Their father is still wary of them despite many years having passed since the disappearance of Yusuf. However, the way in which the case is being presented, he appears inclined to assent as he refers to Allah for his rahmah. We need to bear in mind this aspect of reading events as these unfold before our eyes in life, as this will aid us in understanding the application of Quranic guidance later in our presentations. Now, next verse is, brothers get support to convince their father. He agrees to send Yusuf's younger brother with them. So once, now they have talked to their father, and now they got around to unloading their grain from their animals. And once they open it, this is what takes place. وَلَمَّا فَتَحُوا مَتَاعَهُمْ وَجَدُوا بِذَاتَهُمْ رُدَّتْ إِلَيْهِمْ قَالُوا يَا أَبَانَا مَا نَبْغِي هَٰذِهِ بِذَاتُنَا رُدَّتْ إِلَيْنَا وَنَمِيرُ أَهْلَنَا وَنَحْفَظُ أَخَانَا وَنَزْدَادُ كَيْلَ بِعِيرٍ ذَلِكَ كَيْلٌ يَسِيرٌ. So when they opened their load, they saw that together with the grain, their payment has also been returned. Upon this, they said to their father, what more do we need than this, that we obtain grain and also get our money back? So what Yusuf had done was that in case father did not pick up the earlier point, which because brothers did not convey it properly, so now he also returned their money so that they are convinced that Aziz is a good man and there is no harm likely to get from the Aziz side. Now just think that if we cannot go back to obtain grain merely because you do not wish to allow our brother to be with us, what a great loss this will be. Of course, if they don't go back to get the grain, then they will not get the grain. And under the situation of famine, they will be deprived and they will suffer. Therefore, give us permission that we can take him with us and bring back grain for our household. That is understood. We will give him full protection, and from this, we will benefit of his share. So this is the point I made earlier, that his share probably was given last time, but he said that you will have to bring him along next time. So there was no question of any suspicion or anything. This was the rule probably being followed at that time. And bring back an additional camel load with us. This is what they are saying, that we will now definitely get another extra camel load. The grain which we have brought is very meager, it will soon finish. So they also convinced their father that the grain which we have now is not enough, will not meet our needs. Probably they go back a bit earlier. قَالَ لَنْ أُرْسِلَهُ مَعَكُمْ حَتَّى تُؤْتُونِي مَوْثِقٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ لَا تَأْتُونِي بِهِ إِلَّا أَنْ يُحَاطَ بِكُمْ فَلَمَّا أَتَوْهُ مُوثِقَهُمْ قَالَ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ مَا نَقُولُ وَكِيلٌ. Now, father replied after this discussion, the father said that since you are now pressuring me like this, I will therefore send him with you, but on this condition that you make a commitment by keeping Allah between us that you will definitely bring him back to me, accepting that you are yourself somehow encircled. So father still gives them some allowance that in case there is a risk which is beyond your control, then of course we cannot do much. Become totally helpless in this way. When they had given a commitment for this, he said that Allah is a guardian on our discussion and the agreement which we have made. So this is the way man of Wahi does, that he brings in Allah in everything, for example, we do, and then say Allah is a witness on this, which means he was taking a sort of an oath from them. But this had no importance, practical importance, because this is for somebody who is Allah fearing and who is muttaqi. His sons were not the followers of Wahi, and they were just ordinary human beings who were not interested in the guidance of the Wahi. So this is something which we can discuss in the question and answer session. Few reflections on these verses. First is, since the brothers did not convey the message of Yusuf unadulterated, they needed additional evidence to support their case for taking their younger brother with them. They seemed to be quite moved by the personal attention of Yusuf as Aziz of Egypt, and they did not wish to lose that attention. By association with power, people do get a boost for their egos. Now, I put down this point from my own experience as well, that people who do not have their own well-developed selves, they're quite moved by being associated with somebody who is very powerful. And they wanted to go back and be closer to Aziz and feel important. So that was the point I thought we should keep it in mind. The return of the money in their sacks, which they discovered once they had opened these at home, was a strong factor in convincing their father that the Aziz had showered their favor on them. The father may have noticed this to be a possible sign. This helped to mold his opinion, and he agreed to send younger son, brother of Yusuf, with them. This could have also influenced Yaqub, that he must have thought that this Aziz fellow, this new Aziz in Egypt, seems to be quite a compassionate fellow and caring, and hopefully his son, the youngest, will not be hurt. However, with the advantage of hindsight and his own experience, he provided some moral support in the light of Wahi and gave verbal guidance to remain vigilant in the land of Egypt. Having agreed to this, now Yaqub goes on to provide some guidance. Yaqub spells out some guidance regarding conduct in Egypt. وَقَالَ يَا بَنِيَّ لَا تَدْخُلُوا مِنْ بَابٍ وَاحِدٍ وَادْخُلُوا مِنْ بَابٍ مُتَفَرِّقَاتٍ وَمَا أُغْنِي عَنْكُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ إِنَّ الْحُكْمَ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَعَلَيْهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. When they were about to leave, the father said to them that, look, sons, when you enter the city, do not all of you enter through one gate. Enter from different gates, because that way, rather than one consolidated caravan going through one gate and attracting the suspicion and attention of general public, he provided this guidance. It is possible that when they went there previously, there were some difficulties which they might have faced. If you all enter together, then seeing a party of strangers, the eyes of the citizens will unnecessarily be upon you. Together with this, he also stated that this is just a thought which has entered my heart, due to which I have told you to take care. Do not think from this that after this you will be secure from every danger and that you will not need to take any further precautions. Now, this cautionary measure of mine ought not to make you ignore anything which, according to time and situation, you should observe of the law of Allah. So he also guided it that my guidance should not be taken, but what should be taken very as prescriptive. Rather, you should take it as a general guidance, and over there you might have to face a slightly different situation, then you should be prepared for that. Remember, peace and danger, profit and loss all occur according to the law of Allah. Other than that, no one else has this authority. So over here, see, innal hukma illa lillah is exactly the same which he repeats what Yusuf repeated when he was in the prison. My trust is also in him, and you too should have trust in him alone, and not only myself and yourselves. Everyone who wishes to trust should place his trust in him. So as a permanent value, then he sums it up at the end. Brothers now arrive in Egypt with Binyamin as per the understanding with Yusuf. وَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَهُمْ أَبُوهُمْ مَا كَانَ يُغْنِي عَنْهُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ إِلَّا حَاجَةً فِي نَفْسِ يَعْقُوبَ قَضَاهَا وَإِنَّهُ لَذُو عِلْمٍ لَمَا عَلَّمْنَهُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Consequently, the caravan of these brothers entered the city in the same manner that the father had advised. But as will become evident a little later, this measure could not prevent that incident which was about to take place there according to the law of Allah, and according to which Binyamin, who is the name of the younger brother, was to be held back here. This cautionary measure was merely the outcome of a thought which took birth in the heart of Yaqub. Because Hazrat Yaqub was quite wary of sending this younger brother with them, and he knew that these other brothers don't like him and have some kind of inbuilt friction in their hearts. So he was uneasy, and as a consequence, the need for extra precautions and the uneasiness from which he had resolved in this way. So in order to satisfy himself, he said that I should provide the guidance, but end of the day, it is the law of Allah which will take care of itself. This thought was also based on knowledge and wisdom. It was not a mere superstition. This is because we had bestowed Yaqub with knowledge and foresight. This is very interesting over here that Allah has summed it up by saying that he was a man of Wahi and he had knowledge and foresight as was expected of him. That knowledge and foresight which most people remain without because they don't make an effort. La Ya'lamun sums it up because they do not make an effort to acquire knowledge. They just live on a day-to-day basis because acquiring knowledge requires effort. Now over here I have put it down that name of the younger brother of Yusuf is not mentioned in the Quran. Binyamin is possibly taken as an equivalent of Benjamin as written in the Bible. It is used here to make it easy to refer to him in our presentation. So we had an option. I had an option whether everywhere I should say younger brother. Then I thought that Binyamin has been used by Allama Parvez as well. So we should use it for our convenience. Yaqub provides guidance to his sons. Yaqub was very knowledgeable and never hesitated to guide his children, and he provides guidance on the security and safety of his sons. The Quran has noted this in a fair amount of detail, for example, in 1267. And if you remember, in the case of Yusuf as well, when they were taking him away 20 years in the past, he had given a number of instructions to them as well. Please note his firm statement where he tells them, Inna hukma illa lillah, reminding them that it is important to keep in mind the permanent values of Wahi. Of course, they were ignoring, they were not interested in the guidance of Allah. This clearly points to the fact that the sons and other family members were acquainted with the Wahi of Allah. If we recall, Yusuf had stated the same to his fellow prisoners. This is a great instruction for all of us to keep this in our consciousness at all times. So we being the students of the Quran and being focused, we should always keep it in mind, Inna hukma illa lillah, and that way we will remain guided. We will remain, our consciousness will always be occupied with this fact that it is the deen of Allah as and when it comes that will solve the human problems in this life. Verse 1268 sums up another important aspect of the limitations of human knowledge. Despite the fact that Yaqub made sure to brief his sons not to commit any error of judgment and thus attract trouble, He could not anticipate the trouble which was brewing due to the non-Wahi character of the sons, who ended up making another error by succumbing to their base desire. So this thing will become clear what is coming next. If we are not guided by Wahi, then we are likely to succumb to our desires, our emotive makeup, the way we human beings are, that we tend to go for immediate gratification, or immediate reactions are become impulsive. Yusuf meets brothers and discloses his identity to Binyamin very quietly. Now they have arrived in Egypt, and they have met Yusuf. فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَى يُوسُفَ آوَى عَلَيْهِ أَخَاهُ قَالَ إِنِّي أَنَا أَخُوكَ وَلَا تَبْتَئِسْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. When this party reached Yusuf, he had his brother stay with him. He was waiting for them, and he expected them to bring the younger brother with them, and told him that I am your brother Yusuf. And along with this, he also emphasized, do not be sorrowful about whatever our other brothers did to me. Now over here, Alama Parvez has said did to me, but according to my understanding, this is a fairly general reference to what they did to us. So Valataptais means that we should not be sorrowful or suffer with any anxiety anymore. The things are now coming to an end. This verse needs deeper reflection by us. I put down a few points here. The brothers arrived and met Yusuf, and he makes conversation with all of them, and then he gets closer to Binyamin and informs him quietly about his identity. This closeness and further frank and intimate conversation between the two will invariably attract the attention of the jealous brothers. This possibly sets the scene for the next incident. Now let us imagine very briefly and very quickly that what happened is, if we bring it in mind that there is a stall where the grain and cereals are being dispersed, and royal workers are giving them away according to people's turn. And this caravan arrives, these brothers and younger brother are there, Yusuf is there. Now they start chatting with each other. Of course, Yusuf would have asked them that how was your journey and any problems, how is your family? And after that exchange, then younger brother is drawn towards Yusuf. They move away a bit and they start chatting with each other. And the other brothers are going to notice that why Aziz is getting so much interested in this younger brother. What is wrong with us? And this isolation, that is Aziz, Yusuf talking to Binyamin on one side, is going to draw some jealousy and envy. This is just natural. And this is something which then transpires to the next incident. So we should keep that scenario in mind, that what exactly is taking place over there. And we can relate it to the events which happen around us. Yusuf learns a bit more firsthand from Binyamin, and he also briefs him about his own account. All this needs some private time which cannot go unnoticed from the prying eyes of the other brothers. So this is something which we should keep it in mind, that brothers are keeping an eye on this younger brother, and then they are saying that Aziz seems to be a bit more interested in him than in us. The Quran has not mentioned this and has left it to us to figure out ourselves. From our preferential social interactions, which at times do breed jealousy among family members. For example, so-and-so is more favored than others. And we do notice it in some families where parents, for example, are more inclined to one child than others. And this is something we should keep it in mind. Royal goblet, likely to be a measuring scale, goes missing. I put three verses together here, as these are lumped together in the meanings of the Quran because they are interrelated. فَلَمَّا جَهَازَهُمْ بِجَهَازِهِمْ جَعَلَ السِّقْيَاطَ فِي رَحْلِ أَخِيهِ ثُمَّ أَذَّنَ مُؤَذِّنٌ أَيَّاتُهَا الْعِيرُ إِنَّكُمْ لَسَارِقُونَ قَالُوا وَأَقْبَلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ مَاذَا تَفْقِدُونَ قَالُوا نَفْقِدُ سُوَاءَ الْمَلِكِ وَلِمَنْ جَاءَ بِهِ حِمْلُ بَعِيرٍ وَأَنَا بِهِ زَعِيمٌ. So the Quran has omitted what went between the two verses and now came to the next point. When Yusuf had their load made ready for the return, so a lot had happened between that. Once they arrived, they must have stayed there for a few nights as well, and it's possible Binyamin might have stayed with Yusuf. Then one of the brothers put the royal goblet measuring vessel in the sack of Binyamin. If not discovered, then the goblet will reach home, and if discovered, then Binyamin will get a bad name. When Yusuf's men found the goblet missing following their departure, one among them cried out, "O people of the caravan, halt, you are thieves." Very interesting over here. Now these brothers, one of them saw that this Binyamin is very close to Aziz, so he reacted and he said, okay, I'll teach him a lesson for getting very close to Aziz. And he puts that goblet, which is probably a measuring bowl, which was being used at this station. There must be more than one, but the one which was used for these brothers got missing. So what he did was he put it in the sack of Binyamin, and thinking that in case it is detected, then of course Binyamin will suffer. If it is not detected, we'll have a nice goblet with us, because those goblets must be quite expensive, big ones to distribute grains. They turned towards the man of Yusuf and said, what is it that is missing of yours, for which you are calling us thieves? They replied that the royal goblet has gone missing. Whoever finds it will receive the reward of a camel load. This is in case it is not done deliberately. The leader of these men declared that I give assurance of this, that this reward will certainly be given. So he tells them that we have this goblet over here. He might have even told them that you also saw it, but it has gone missing, and it is possibly in somebody's sack. It is deliberately or maybe by mistake, but we need to search you. Verse 1269 provides a possible motive for this brother to hide this goblet in the sack of Binyamin with a view to get him into trouble with the Aziz of Egypt, Yusuf. It is possible that he might have thought that this Aziz seems to be very inclined to him. Let me put it there, and then we will see that how he treats him, and a thief who is inclined towards him. Human jealousy does become provoked by immediate circumstances which become created innocently and unwittingly. Yusuf may never have thought that this display of extra affection towards Binyamin will lead to the extent of such an act of hiding the goblet with a view to incriminating his younger brother. So Yusuf deep down wanted to retain Binyamin. He could not do so, as will become clearer later on. So even if Yusuf had desired to keep his younger brother back, because he knew he's suffering over there, and he wanted to, reduce his suffering by keeping him himself. But over here, he could not keep him by force or otherwise unless he discloses his identity. So this is the situation now which has developed at this point in time. Next, brothers deny their involvement in the disappearance of goblet. Now, it is possible that only one did it and others did not know it, or they did it together, but Quran doesn't point to that. Quran only talks about missing goblet. قالوا تالله لقد علمتم ما جئنا لنفسد في الأرض وما كنا سارقين. The brothers of Yusuf said that Allah is a witness that we did not come here to create some kind of mischief or to break a law. We have come here before as well. Therefore, you are acquainted with us that we do not have any such kind of intention. Be assured, we are not thieves. So they very vehemently defend themselves because nobody has seen them putting it in, and they can say that we have not taken this goblet. Now, Qalu fama jazahu in kuntum kazibin. The royal official said that if you turn out to be liars, then what should be its punishment? Now, we can notice that Yusuf, as Aziz is not involved in it. Maybe he's kept informed, or maybe he did not know it at this stage, or he may be with his brother on one side, or maybe they are over there together. But whatever the situation is, now it is unfolding itself right in front of our eyes. So over here they said that what should be the punishment in case this goblet is found and we find that it was deliberately stolen. قالوا جزاه من وجد في رحله فهو جزاؤه كذلك نجزي الظالمين. Now this is very interesting over here. We should notice that goblet hasn't been found yet. The search has yet to take place. And these guys, the royal workers, or one of them, asked them that in case this is found in any one of the sacks or with you, then what will be the punishment? The one among them he knew in whose bag the goblet was, as noted in 1270, said that in whoever's sack the goblet is discovered, he should be detained in retaliation for this. This is the manner according to which we punish criminals. Now just keep it in mind because I have commented on this in a bit more detail. Important reflections on the disappearance of the goblet. The first point is the situation becomes tense as the staff accused them of theft, and they vehemently denied this as only one brother knew who had done it, and he was firm in his resolve not to disclose anything. He had nothing to lose as it was stored in the sack of Binyamin. So the brother who had put it in the bag of the younger brother Binyamin, he had saved himself. He knew that it is not going to be discovered as far as he is concerned. The goblet, even if he comes out, this will be Binyamin who will suffer. Second is when they were asked to suggest a punishment, one of them proposed that the one found to have committed the theft should serve the sentence of being held back, possibly to be a servant for a period of time, not specified by the Quran. This is important that the goblet hasn't been found, but the punishment has been suggested. So the guy who suggested the punishment could be the same who had hidden the goblet in the sack of Binyamin. But that is not an issue. Issue over here is that how could he suggest a punishment when the goblet hasn't been found? And how do they know that the goblet will be found in their stuff? It could be in somebody else's. It could be stolen by one of the workers. The guilty brother probably knew that under the king's law, the punishment may not be very severe, or that the execution of the punishment will be at the behest or personal decree of the Aziz, i.e. Yusuf. And seeing that Binyamin is in the good books of Yusuf, he may be allowed to go free. In any case, the kindness and compassion of Yusuf was widely known. So this is important, that how the scene has been set. Yusuf, of course, wanted Binyamin to stay back, but he could not do it under the law, or he couldn't do it forcibly because he was a righteous person and no way he will do that. Now, the issue over here is that these brothers, they have committed themselves to this punishment even without knowing whether the goblet is in their stuff or not. And that is the important point for us, as a learning point for us from this story, that how things are unfolding themselves in front of us. An interesting point is that there does not seem any need to spell out the punishment, since the goblet has not yet been discovered with them. So there was no need to say that there is a punishment. They should have straight away said that we don't have it. It is not going to be in our stuff. So why are you talking punishment? We'll look into punishment once the goblet is found. And the answer should possibly have been, find it first, as we are sure that this cannot be in our sacks. Cast an eye back to when Yusuf was disposed of in the well, and they had asserted to their father, you will not believe us, though we are telling the truth. So these brothers are quite used to telling lies and quite used to presenting very deceitful. Because if you remember that when Yusuf was put into the well and they came back and they said that he has been eaten up by a wolf, and they said that we know you are not going to believe us, but it is a fact. Yusuf does not know this, nor does Binyamin know this. So both of them do not know it. Yusuf and Binyamin are seeing this unfolding in front of them. They must be quite amazed, and Yusuf must be quite amazed at what an accomplished liars these brothers are. This incident would not have taken place if Yusuf had disclosed his identity to his brothers when they first arrived in Egypt. Very important for us, because law of requital, we must give it time to expose people themselves to their own selves. So this is an important lesson for us, i.e. during the previous visit. This is a point worthy of reflection. Perhaps on occasion we need to give time to the law of requital to unfold and remain patient and steadfast. Incident leads to Yusuf retaining his real brother back. Now, next verse is Fabada be oyatihim qabla wa bi'ai akihi summa takhrajaha min bi'ai akihi. كذلك كدنا ليوسف ما كان ليأخذ أخاه في الدين المالك إلا أن يشاء الله نرفع درجات من نشاء. Just please keep this part of the verse in mind. نرفع درجات من نشاء وفوق كل ذي علم عليم. Then the royal workers began the search of the sacks. First they looked at the sacks of the other brothers, and the goblet was not found. Finally searched the sack of the brother of Yusuf, and the goblet was discovered in it. See from where the matter started and where it ended, with what intention his half-brother had stored this goblet in the sack of Binyamin, but this act of his became the cause for Yusuf to hold Binyamin back to stay with him. In this way, we created a way for Yusuf to retain Binyamin. Otherwise, according to the law of the king of Egypt, he could not have been able to hold his brother back with him. For this, only Mashiach could find a way, as a result of which the wish of Yusuf's heart could be fulfilled, and for which he did not have to do any such thing, due to which he could fall from his lofty rank. So Yusuf did not play any role in it. Though in Bible it is stated as if Yusuf had done it, Yusuf could not simply do it. He couldn't even think of doing it because he was a man, he was among Mohsineen, and Mohsineen don't do it. Mu'mineen and Muttaqi don't do it. Full stop. This is how we bestow lofty ranks according to our law of Mashiach. Remember, the knowledge of Allah is higher than the level of all those who possess knowledge. So over here is the Quran relates to this, that because Yusuf was following Allah's law and he was patient, and all along he was following the guidance of Wahi, so his rank in fact went up because of this incident. Human actions, Allah relates to himself. Now over here I've quoted some of the incidents which are quoted in the meanings of the Quran, volume 7 by Allama Pervez, and I thought we should share it, that Allah relates to himself all the events which take place in the human world. We teach children to speak, but it is stated in the Quran that Allah created man and taught him to speak. Similarly, we teach children and even illiterate adults to write, but it is stated by Allah that Allah is He who taught man to write with a pen. It is obvious that the meaning of these verses is that Allah has placed the potential for speech and penmanship in man. So in the human world, whatever we do, Allah relates to himself that as if he did it. And especially in the case of Mu'mineen and the Muttaqeen, that when we do something, we should relate it to Allah in any case, because those potentials are kept within us to carry out the task which we are supposed to carry out under the guidance of Wahi. To make use or not to make use of these potentials is a matter for man himself. Allah has neither taught anyone to speak nor to write, because these potentials are within us. In Surah Al-Baqarah, it is stated that when a scribe is asked to write a document, then the scribe should not refuse to do this, but should write this document in the way that Allah has taught him. Obviously, from this, it also means that ability to write, which Allah has made potentially available within man, He himself does not teach a scribe to write. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, it is stated about hunting animals. Whatever Allah has taught you, you train the hunting animals according to that. Obviously, Allah does not teach the hunters about how they should train hunting animals. In Surah Yasin, it is stated, and this matter is also a sign for them to understand reality, that we cause their children to ride in a full boat. It's worthwhile to look at these verses which are quoted here. Even though they climb into the boat themselves, or their elders help them to do this. To act in accordance with the law of nature, has Allah not attributed this to himself? So this is a sort of a question mark which is put here, that all this is, whatever goes on in this life, we should look into it and relate it to Allah. A few more examples relating human actions to Allah. Allah has created various kinds of means and resources for human needs, which man brings into use according to his choice, but Allah also relates this to himself. For example, in Surah Nahl, it is said, Allah has made your houses as abodes of peace. After that is stated, Allah has made houses for you with the hides of animals. Next one is, one point which should be understood as a principle is that it is an immutable law of Allah that any individual who ingests poison beyond a particular quantity will die. Sometimes he says that any individual who takes poison will be killed, and in some places that we kill the one who ingesting poison. A well-known verse is, Allah has put a seal on their hearts because they do not listen to the guidance of Allah. And this same reality is explained at another place in these words. Whatever they do, it becomes as rust and covers their hearts. And this is how a seal is applied to their hearts. So we should keep it in mind that wherever the words like nasha is used, that we should see that what law is applicable here and how Allah is relating to himself. End of the day, it is we do things in this life through using our own intellect and our own desires and our own hands. Verse 1276, a detailed appraisal. This verse merits careful analysis, and there are a number of points noted here by Allah. First is, the Quran states that Yusuf had the desire to retain his brother with him for the reason of maltreatment by his stepbrothers. He knew that not much has changed in these brothers, and they are still harboring jealousy and a grudge against them. So there is no point in sending him back, and he also expected that this may be picked up by the father, that both are safe and alive, signs in the light of Wahi. And he does. However, Yusuf could not retain him by force, as it was against Wahi. and the only route was that somehow the conditions are created by the brothers themselves. The Quran has pointed to this aspect here, that those who do wrong at times themselves create those conditions which favor mu'mineen. Very important point over here. A lot of time we need patience, and the events, the way these develop in front of us, become favorable to us. One of the brothers who hid the goblet in the sack of Binyamin could never have imagined that he is doing a favor to Yusuf and Binyamin, just like what they did to Yusuf many years ago. So many years ago, they threw him and dropped him into a well, and they never thought that this Aziz standing in front of them is Yusuf. And now they did the same to the younger brother, and they don't know that what else of their jealousy and their malice is going to come out next. Allah has declared this righteousness and patience of Yusuf as raising his rank further. So this is important for us, that this is how we raise the level of self-development of ours, by being patient and by being steadfast. Desisting from any form of wrongdoing in order to achieve an aim, and the act itself of patience and fortitude, is a great lesson for us all. I'll read it again. Desisting from any form of wrongdoing, despite temptations, in order to achieve an aim, and the act itself of patience and fortitude, is a great lesson for us all. And this is how our self develops. When we display these attributes and remain immovable from this path, our self develops to ever greater heights. The Quran makes another important point here by saying that acquiring this understanding of the functioning of the Mashiach of Allah makes us alim. We will share all these aspects at the end of Surah Yusuf to see what is in it for us as of today. Now, next is the law of requital, is ensuring its outcome is established. Qalu in yasrik faqad saraka akhun lahu min qablu fasarraha Yusufu fi nafsihi walam yubdiha lahum. Qala antum sharru makanan wallahu alamu bima tasifun. I have underlined this part of the verse. I will just explain it once I go through its meanings. At this, the brothers of Yusuf said that if he has committed theft, then it is not a matter of surprise. He had another brother. He also had committed theft in this way. Hence, this issue continues to be habitual among them. Of how venomous was this dagger which was being plunged into the depths of the heart of Yusuf. It must have entered his mind to disclose all their dirty linen before them, but the time for this had not yet arrived. Therefore, Yusuf reserved this matter in his heart and only said that whatever you are saying, the true knowledge of this is with Allah. But, and within the bracket, if the incident is as you are describing them, but you do not appear to be good people, because even though you are half brothers, you are still brothers of these thieves, your family is still the same. So over here, it's very interesting that Yusuf, despite this false accusation, these brothers were leveling against him, he keeps quiet. He has got such a developed self that he said, no, this is not the time to disclose it. The time for that will come at the right moment. Two opposing aspects of the human psyche become clearly discernible for our education from this verse 1277. The law of requital here brings before us two completely different facets of the human self and the psyche operating behind both of these. These brothers of Yusuf were still harboring extreme prejudice against their half-brothers, and among them is a brother who had hidden the goblet. Instead of remaining quiet and being conscious of the consequences of being discovered and apologizing, display their vindictive dislike for their two brothers. We do not hesitate to level a false charge of theft against Yusuf, being unaware of his presence and thinking he is not here, so it is fine to malign him. Completely oblivious of the functioning of the law of requital. Because now they are trying to win over Yusuf on their side and saying that this brother is a thief and as his was elder brother. We need to train ourselves in the highest possible awareness about the law of requital all the time. Things do come back to bite us at the least expected time in the future. They clearly demonstrated that these two half-brothers are not part of the family to which they belong. They are saying we are righteous people, but somehow these half-brothers, Yusuf and Binyamin, are not. Contrary to this, we witness an extremely high level of integrity, self-control, firmness of character, and manifestation of the three attributes of Aziz, Hakim, and Ali. Aziz is very clear because he is in a position of power now, and he is very firm, very resolute, very steadfast. hakim in holding back an impulsive reaction, and disclosure as the time has not yet arrived for this. So he knows the hikmat of it. He says, no, this is not the time to confront them. Alim points to knowledge of the human psyche and understanding of the functioning of the Mashiach of Allah. This is how we obtain guidance from the Quran. Turn ourselves into manifesting all these divine attributes and becoming conscious of the permanent values so that we are always aware of our thoughts, desires, emotions, feelings, behavior. It should become second nature to us, as they say, Inna hukmu illa lillah. So see how this whole thing, the whole episode up to this point is pointing to this fact that how accomplished character and integrity and honesty of Yusuf has become, and how the brothers are demeaning themselves and they haven't changed. Post-impulsive reaction leads to humility under pressure. Now the next verse is Qalu ya ayyuhal azizu inna lahu aban shaykhan kabiran fakhuz ahadana makanahu inna naraka minal muslimin. Now brothers, after accusing both brothers of being thieves, now they came to their senses and they said, and they thought that now brother is going to stay back, and what is going to be their reply or response to their father with whom they had made a commitment. They said, "O Aziz of Egypt, Binyamin's father is very old. His father is very old." Just look at the way Quran has noted it, that his father is very old, not their own father is very old. So see, they are breeding some kind of a jealousy and reservations against their father as well, and this thing will become clearer in our next presentations. And he loves him a great deal. You may hold back any one of us in his place and let him go. So they were quite happy to stay with Aziz because they had seen that Aziz is a nice person, so they may even have a good time in Egypt. We have found you to be an extremely noble human being. You are very compassionate. So the same noble human being whom they had already called a thief. You are very compassionate. Therefore, we are hopeful that you will certainly accept our request. The brothers, after initial negative reaction, come to their senses and realize the gravity of the situation. Remember, they had given a commitment to their father about the safe return of Binyamin, and despite this, one of them committed this act. The Quran has quoted that they relate their father as being Binyamin's and do not say our father. A cognitive dissonance exists which is causing division in their minds. So this is where Quran helps us to develop our inner self, our cognitive abilities, that we become extremely sensitive and alive to what is being discussed here so that we can change our own inner thinking. However, they do recognize Yusuf to be a very eminent character through their interaction so far. This impression of theirs of Yusuf is based on their own relative values, not on Wahi. This is guidance for us to keep these two different aspects in mind. For us, it's a great lesson here that we should become fully aware of the kind of negative feelings at times might be arising through our mind and brain, and our I, that is our own consciousness, should recognize it in the light of the Quran and eliminate it and not to follow it. So this is important for us, and all what we are discussing is possible to do for all of us. However, Yusuf has to do justice, and he does not become emotive and sentimental and remains firm on his decision based on the facts of the case to be covered in our next presentation. Finally, some conclusions. In this segment of the Surah Yusuf, we clearly witness two different selves manifesting their traits before us. The brothers of Yusuf are behaving outside the domain of Wahi of Allah, despite having been referred to it repeatedly by their father Yaqub. They hear and then forget and go against its guidance because they do not accept it cognitively. The selves functioning under the guidance of Wahi are of Yaqub and Yusuf, diametrically opposite. Highly conscientious with clear aim and destination, alert, fully aware, concerned, just focused on doing good to others, aware of the law of requital, eminent, have forethought, they're precise, fully observant, resolute and determined, motivated, patient, i.e. understand events to take time to materialize, see human life connected with the hereafter, intellect and desires, emotions under Wahi's domain, relating everything of theirs to Allah through the guidance of Wahi. So I pulled down all these thoughts which are coming out of Surah Yusuf in terms of the character of Yusuf and his father Yaqub. Yusuf and Yaqub recognize the state of development of other human beings, hence are comfortable with what is going on around them and never get frustrated and do not let despair get near them. They have enabled themselves to witness those issues which others simply cannot see despite all being part of the same events, incidents, and environment. There is a lesson for us to appreciate this aspect in its totality. People only see what they wish to see, and this is why most who read and study the Quran miss the obvious, and we need to become aware of it, i.e. to know what we have missed previously and now are becoming aware of it, and what others are missing and we have picked up and made it part of our consciousness. So this is important for us. The way we are discussing this Surah Yusuf, we are going point-wise through the verses and trying to see what exactly is taking place in terms of the life of Yusuf and what lessons we can draw from it and how can we improve our own self. As noted in the verse 12:3, this account will help bring out Husn. If you remember at the beginning, now because this is at that point when the Quran was being revealed, was serving as guidance for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his companions. And now it is a guidance for us. So this account will help bring out Husn, that is balance defined by the Quran in ourselves. We will see more of it coming in our direction as we proceed to the end of this surah. And with that, we come to the end of this presentation. And thank you for sharing it and sparing your time.